You don't see, when you're looking through a camera, you don't see anything you're shooting. The camera is recording everything you're pointing it at. All you're doing is wherever you see there's action, you're pointing the camera. This is what it is here.
Think about the men who take these pictures. They have to be in the thick of the action.
My major was photography. At graduation, I wanted to get a job in the studio, but in '43, there wasn't too many jobs around, and I found out that the Signal Corps had photography. I requested immediate reduction, providing I got the photography, which they said no problem. And so I signed immediate reduction papers, and I was in camp with a 16 by 20 portfolio, waiting for an interview. In the interim, they had me stringing wire, climbing telephone poles. They were making a lineman out of me. And a week before finishing the course, I had an officer from Paramount Studio come down to interview me. And 3 days later, I was on my way to Long Island City from Jersey. And I was now going to get into photography. And so I said, I'd like to do movies. And I was told, you need 10 years experience as a still man before you can do movies. And I said to him, where am I supposed to get that from? He said, well, you have to watch the roster board. And the roster board showed me motion picture. So, push come to shove, I learned motion picture. But photography was still an art, and since I had the background already, they figured they could use me quicker, since they were figuring on the landing in Normandy, which I wasn't aware of. I was put into a line of equipment and men being shipped overseas. We were shipped back again to New York, put on a train. In Manhattan, we went to a port, we put on a ship. We were on a Liberty ship in Cavalry. We were sent, and then the tenders came out and picked us up to take us to shore. And so on the landing is when I went ashore, I was a cameraman. However, they still had me booked in as a wireman. And I turned out they threw me back into a line company. Okay, so at that point, as soon as we hit the beach, next day, when we were off the beach, I was in the hedgerows. I woke up one morning with a shell at the other end of my split stretch, okay? I'm here because it was a dud, okay? And when that happened, I started moving around, and I spotted this camera crew, and I said, hey. And they said, well, Officer so-and-so, I dug him up, and that's when I told him I'm an 043 and I'm stringing wire. And he said, okay, give me your number and whatnot. And 2 days later, the next day, I'm called into the captain's office, and that was it. We were a unit of 4 men, 2 units. We were assigned to 4th Cavalry Recon. I was. And so I followed tanks. We were on patrol constantly. This is what I was doing, shooting motion pictures. I was way back and pushed way ahead of everything else because tanks were moving while they were still getting people onto the beach. We were moving very fast. We were hitting tanks were hitting villages that had already been pre-bombed, okay, by foot troops and whatnot. And we hit a village, and military government was already in collecting all weapons and binoculars, anything like that could be detrimental. And we find dead horses still burning, laying in the road, in the villages. We were right on top, right after bombing years, we were in there already with cameras. And since we're following the tanks, we hit the concentration camps right from the start when we got further in, because the tanks were always up front. That was your wall.
So we tore into San Lo with the fury of a tornado.
And as I say, the Battle of San Lo was one of the biggest battles they had, the biggest city that they floored. And I lost one of my buddies there at that time who I was training with at Paramount. We used to double date. And then I lost track of him. He got killed somewhere in that area there. And so, you moved on. Each day was an experience, let's put it that way. You don't think of anything. You're just trying to stay warm and safe. My group was assigned to 4th Cavalry Recon, 1st Army. And when the tanks moved, we moved with them. We would take the place of a 50 caliber gunner in a tank if we ran into any heavy firing. That was a protection for us to get covered. Other than that, we were on foot. We're carrying a camera, and we had a rifle to carry. And you couldn't carry a rifle and a camera, so they took the rifles away from us and gave us a .45. That meant from here to here, that was it. We passed a lot of people on the road, groups of prisoners that were being stripped down, and we'd shoot pictures on that there and then keep moving on because the tanks keep moving. We just keep moving with them. We let the foot soldiers coming up in the back take care of all of that. The photo company was a good base. We would go back there to get the service for our vehicles, okay? They would also clean up the cameras for us. They had a lab. They were doing printing pictures for anybody, particularly those who were handling the food, okay? And so the cooks in my photo company were cooks. They were getting prime steaks. They were getting great stuff. First Army headquarters would come down to my photo company for good meals.
Through motion pictures and still photographs, we have seen the American soldier in the tense moment of actual combat.
We were strictly on combat. We were not on public relations. When we were in the field, before we go out in the morning, we would go into headquarters and we see the map of where we were going and what was going on, so we knew what to anticipate. So basically, we knew enough of what was going around. But our job was to record it. Every time we shoot and send our film back, we'd get back a little strip telling us whether it's a camera problem or what to do to take care of it, or they come back with a notation, stop faking it. We get burnt to hell for that, because we were constantly under fire, and they say, stop faking it, okay? The action looked too good, so they thought we were setting stuff up, and we didn't set anything up. You didn't have time to do anything like that.
The French had been waiting for their big day for 5 long years, because Paris had become a symbol. The rest of the world had been waiting too.
Eventually, when we took Paris, I was already attached with my unit, Jeep, to the French underground. And we were waiting on a bridge for almost 2 weeks before making the grand entrance down the Champs-Élysées, waiting for de Gaulle to show up, okay? Because the city still wasn't safe. There was still firing going on. And it was great to see all these people out there, the lines. Some guys were getting time to go to Paris for relaxation, okay, once we moved on. But as a cameraman, we didn't get time to break off. You're just rolling every day. You were in one place, you'd say, for a couple of days, then you are moving again. As the army starts to catch up to you, the tanks start to move out again. And so this was always the way it rolled. You couldn't leave too big a distance between, because that's what happened with the Battle of the Bulge. We were so far in that they were able to surround us. That Third Army had to come in to cover First Army, who was now backlogged in there. When paratroopers came down and came into it, had to come in. And so we had to work our way out of this hole, and that's what happened. It was on the 23rd, we got back to our base, There had been a big battle the night before. There was a tank standing there burning. I started to shoot pictures on it about 30 feet away from it. I started shooting pictures on it for record purposes, and then all the ammo let loose. And I was kneeling, I went right down to the ground. I got up, continued shooting. I went back to my vehicle. My officer said, "Are you all right to get hit, sir?" I said, "No." I put my foot up on the running board of the Jeep, and I saw blood coming down off from the boot. So they had me package. I put my film together, packaged it. When I got wounded, I was only in the Battle of the Bulge, I think maybe 2 days, and I was lucky because my wound wasn't serious that much. It was just a lot of shrapnel I picked up. But while I was being patched up in London, the rest of my camera crew became prisoners of war. Because when I came back, I was now Third Army, and I was now in a different photo company. It was now 166 photo, okay? And then I found out that what happened, but I couldn't get any other information past that because we were constantly moving. At that point, we already had crossed the Rhine when I came back in. I eventually ended up in Czechoslovakia, meeting up with the Russians. And that's when we stayed there a short time, and they packaged us up and sent us back to a camp in Belgium that had a big pagoda on it that said "On to Tokyo." And we were stripped of anything personal. All we had was GI equipment. We were gonna probably flown in, okay? And it ended up, we lay there a couple of months because they dropped that big bomb. And fortunately, I had acquired 85 points already. As on points, I went home. So other than that, if it wasn't on points, I would have been in the Pacific then too. Well, these are all the medals that I've got on. For rifle range, good conduct, Eastern, Western battles, everything there. My Purple Heart, the French medal, Croix de Guerre, which was given to me by the French government just about 2 or 3 years ago.